I think what got me for tonight's new episode of Tyler Perry Sistas, Season 9, Episode 4, was Zach crying on Aaron's shoulder. Out of all the people, that's who he ended up opening up to. I mean, he didn't fully express how he felt, but that's what got it for me. Now, usually, I don't like when they be crying and stuff, especially since that salon burning down, that scene with everybody hollering and stuff. Go back and watch that scene. Y'all gonna know what I mean. But basically, everybody was just struggling, trying to process their emotions after everything that's happened. With Karen, losing her baby, she don't want to be around anybody that don't want to acknowledge the fact that she did lose a child or whatever. With Zach, he's still processing losing his daughter as well. Andy's still processing her friend Karen, hurting and losing her child, as well as the whole Hudson situation. With Fatima and Zach, she was just trying to get him to open up, but he wouldn't. I won't say that he was pushing her away, but he hasn't let her in. She over here blaming herself. I was like, no, you did everything right. You did everything right. Hayden still being Hayden. Danny and Tony, he over here in her face again. I said, did you just get in trouble? Ain't they trying to send you to Alaska because you won't stay out her face? Rich and Sabrina over here arguing in the doggone bank real loud too. I was like, you're at work, right? You're at work. Fatima ends up checking on Andy. Dr. Vaughn ends up letting Andy know that this isn't Dr. Cruz's first time doing this to a patient. And I think the last thing is that Penelope showed up to Sabrina's job. Despite best efforts, Karen refuses any kind of comforting company while the rest of the sisters confront their own individual problems as they all rear their ugly heads again. That was the episode synopsis for tonight's new episode of Tyler Perry Sistas, Season 9, Episode 4. The name of the episode was One is the Loneliest Number, y'all. Okay, so first of all, before we dive into the review, they never showed Robin again. I said they done brought him back just to have him leave again. What type of sense they made? Now, I don't know if he gonna be on this season or what. I haven't heard anything. They was very hush-hush about this. But okay, so on tonight's new episode, they started with Pam and Danny. They showed Pam, she done decorated the place and stuff like that. Nobody told her diddly freaking squat. Danny came in, she tried to warn her, she tried to get her to move the stuff and stuff like that, but it was too late. They brought Karen in, she ends up saying, she can't do this, and she left and went in the room. But they finally ended up telling Pam, everything that happened, and that's when Aaron said their daughter's name is Faith. And I was like, I knew they hadn't said it. I knew they hadn't said her name, but I had already heard people talking about it. But yeah, they showed the ladies just taking care of Karen, helping her get in the bed and stuff like that. It cut off, y'all, but I was just saying how Karen was saying that she's lost, things are never going to be all right. Miss Lisa ends up bringing in Faith or whatever, and she was like, she think that, Karen should try to breastfeed again. But she wouldn't do it. She put the cover over her head, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then they said next week, she's supposed to be struggling even more, y'all. But yeah, Fatima ends up checking on Zach, but he won't open up either. He won't open up. He was like, he good. And she started saying how she feels responsible. And I was like, no. No. I was like, I said, you did everything right. The way she showed up, the way she took her to the hospital, the way she stayed by her side, the way she contacted her family and everything, the way she advocated for her. I was like, you definitely did everything right. Now, the doctor and that nurse lady, But yeah, Zach was saying how he doesn't want to do anything and stuff like that. Miss Lisa was trying to get Karen to breastfeed again, but she wouldn't do it. She said she not gonna ever do it. And I said, oh. I said, Karen not tending to the baby hollering and stuff like that. They ended up showing Hayden. I said, here you go. I said, here you go, still being Hayden or whatever. I said, he must forgot that she his boss. Ain't she his boss? Look, I was saying that during that whole scene, he going back and forth, he making jokes or whatever and just talking crazy. I was like, ain't she his boss? But yeah, she had to remind him. I said, there go Hayden. But yeah, Hayden ends up saying he's glad that Andy is okay. Yeah, he was saying how he's glad that she's okay and stuff like that. Then he started being him. Andy ends up reminding him that she is a partner or whatever. He asked her where Gary was, and I said, I want to know too. Because they saying that Gary not supposed to be in this season like that. Tony and Danny. I said, Tony definitely don't learn, y'all. He definitely don't learn. He's still in Danny's face at work or whatever. And here go that Leonard dude. I said, here you go. He ends up asking her the same thing I was wondering last season. He said, how did Danny get a payoff for assaulting him? I said the same thing. I was like, right, exactly. She done assaulted him, threw the coffee on him and everything, and she done got a payout. I forgot how much she got paid, y'all. Let me know down below. But with Leonard, he was just doing the same thing. It's like he never learned. So she threatened to throw some more coffee on him, and she ain't learned either. But she was like, not she. He ends up saying something about he heard in, I don't know if he said the coffee room, the break room. He said something about he heard, and she didn't want to hear it or whatever. So I'm assuming it's that Tony done decided to quit. Spoiler alert. He done decided to quit. And my thing about him and Danny is I feel like he be trying to work things out and save their relationship and stuff like that. And she just be like, oh, whatever. I mean, that's obviously how she cope with things and stuff like that, but that gets old real fast. Sabrina ended up confiding in Maurice about the whole Karen situation, about how she doesn't know how to help her. And then she ends up revealing that she found out that the embryos were boys. And I was like, I didn't know you could find that out. I didn't know. Well, I don't know much about it. I just know, what was that? I think General Hospital where I learned about that. I don't know, y'all. But Sabrina and Marie started to talk about Rich, and she was saying how she doesn't want to see him. She don't want to talk to him or nothing like that. And he showed up. Somebody said, sorry to disappoint you. I was like, dude, you and Penelope need to go on about y'all business. But yeah, Aaron, this is the part that got me right here. Aaron stopped by with donuts for Zach. He stopped by to check on him. They had a nice little conversation. I said, I hope this sticks. I hope this sticks, as well as the whole Karen and Fatima situation, because we tired of it now. We sick of it. But yeah, Aaron stops by. He ends up, giving Zach some donuts and stuff like that, just checking on him, asking how he handling things. And he was like, Pam had got a bunch of the baby stuff, but she didn't know that the baby died or whatever. So if you want the stuff, I have it. And Zach wasn't ready for it or anything like that. He said he gonna put it in his storage so that he can have it for him and Fatima baby. I said, wait a minute now. When did they all find out that she was pregnant? Maybe I'm just forgetting because it's been a minute. When? Because Andy also mentioned something about the baby or whatever. I was like, wait a minute now. I can't remember. I didn't know they knew. Which I say, I don't never pay attention to stuff. I don't never be paying attention like that. But aside from that, let me see where I stop at. Like I said, Aaron was just checking on Zach and stuff like that. Zach said he doesn't know how he'll be okay. Aaron ends up telling Zach that he's there for him if he need anything. Zach and Aaron did that little handshake thing that men be doing or whatever. I don't know what it's called. Is it a handshake or what? Or a hug or both? But either way it go, they did it. They did it or whatever. And Zach started to cry. And excuse me. Zach started crying on his shoulder. And I said, I don't normally like that. How they be crying and stuff because of the whole Karen salon catching on fire scene. How everybody was just crying and just overacting and stuff. But I said that was the highlight of the episode for me, y'all. But aside from that, let me see. Sabrina ends up asking Rich what he's doing there, and that's when he was like, he need to talk to her and stuff like that. They started yelling at each other, and I said, you at work, right? You at work. But yeah, Sabrina was saying how she thinks that Penelope trying to target them because of Andy. He's like, not everything is because of Andy. I said, he still got a problem with Andy. He still got a problem with Andy, y'all. But yeah, Rich reminds Sabrina that she broke up with him or whatever. Now, once again, I was like, right, you did break up with him. Now, it was fast. You over here in public or whatever. Y'all ain't even locked no doggone doors or nothing. And she was basically telling him that he was following her and stalking her and stuff like that. And he was like, I'm about to go or whatever. But first, we need to discuss something. I said, I thought you about to go. I thought you were about to go. But Fatima ends up checking on Andy because of the whole Hudson situation. And Andy tells Fatima to give Zach time because they started talking about that. Andy ends up saying how, she's on an emotional roller coaster because of the whole Karen situation, as well as the fact that, Hudson tried to take her out of there. Because Hudson tried to take her up out of there. But she said she can't sleep at night. That's why I said that everybody was struggling on tonight's new episode. She was struggling, Karen was struggling, Zach was struggling. But yeah, she was like, she hasn't been able to sleep. I think Fatima asked if she heard from Gary. She was like, no. But yeah, she said she can't sleep at night. Her life flashed before her eyes. Miss Lisa was trying to get Karen to eat and walk, and she was like, no. She was like, she tired of being awake. And she was like, what do you mean by that? And I said, I want to know too. Because next week's episode, that says she sinks further and further into, postpartum or whatever. What else? I already said Karen said she tired of being awake. She was like, she don't want to be around people who acting like her daughter didn't just die. Dr. Vaughn ends up calling Andy to check on Karen. He ends up telling her how he likes the way that Andy advocated for Karen. I said, you want them digits, don't you? I said, you want them digits, don't you? I said, get in line with the rest of the men. I said, she done got that little fresh haircut, that fresh hairstyle, and don't be pulling them. But yeah, he was saying how he likes the way Andy advocated for Karen, and he reveals to her that this isn't the first time that Dr. Cruz has played with a patient life or whatever. So she was just trying to get more information out of him and stuff like that. And she was like, maybe she can do more to, help or whatever. And I said, look, Andy be pulling them, don't she? Tony ends up coming by again in this good face, and he kisses Danny, and she's like, what are you doing or whatever? And he was like, that don't matter now because he quit his job. I said, this fool here. And I had already seen people talking about him quitting his job or whatever, but I just thought they was talking or whatever. But yeah, he don't quit his job, y'all. He don't quit his job, and she still look like she ain't satisfied. And that's exactly why I was saying how they don't know what they want or who they want. I said, now the man, he keep on trying. You keep on rejecting him. He said, he could come back and forth to see you. You ain't want him to do that. He wanted you to come. You ain't want to do that. I said, at this point, just break up. At this point, just break up. But yeah, he don't quit his doggone job or whatever, saying now they could be together because he love her or whatever. I said, But yeah, somebody was saying that he's going to resent Danny because he quit or whatever. I could see that happening. I definitely can, because they've done storylines like that before. Maybe not on this show, but other shows. And also, somebody said they think that he gonna want her money. I said, I don't think she got that much money. I don't think she. How much did she get? I forgot already, y'all. I forgot. But aside from that, I think the last thing is that Maurice was trying to eavesdrop on Sabrina Rich when Paige came up. Then Penelope showed up. She showed up talking about, so she want to see Sabrina.